First of all, I would like to apologize for the delay. So you have to excuse us. يعني نعتذر عن التأخير اللي حدث. Your Excellency, Mrs. Isabel Saint Malo, Your Excellency, Professor Gdar, President of the University, distinguished guests, colleagues, and dear students. We are honored today at the Prince Hussein Ibn Talal II School of International Studies to be in the presence of Your Excellency, the Honorable Vice President of Bενμα, Mrs. Saint Malo. Welcome. Before I have the honor and the privilege to introduce Your Excellency to the floor, let me, if I may, make a few introductory remarks. It's a bit academic tradition, and you know, a human understanding should be the product of real dialogue, discussion, humans speaking to humans, communicating with each other, rather than shaping our worldviews and of others based on impression and images, which are prone to impulse and raw emotions. That is why your presence among us, Your Excellency, is important and symbolic in shaping and initiating a conversation between us. I hope it will be the beginning of deeper and wider cooperation, particularly in the educational field. Bενma and Jordan are small countries. However, actual contribution of both individuals and states should be measured in terms of advocating ideas and working towards regional and global well-being. Jordan, under the leadership of His Majesty King Abdullah II, initiated and provided patronage to Amman Message, a document based on dialogue, tolerance, inclusiveness among Muslims and non-Muslims. His Majesty's peace mission and unwavering stand towards global dialogue and understanding is universally acknowledged. Jordan is not a pacifist country, but it does justify itself in moral high ground. Bενma, as I also understand, has managed to move from a period of dictatorship, 1983 to 1989, into a fully grown, mature, and sustainable democracy. It has demonstrated resilience both economically and politically, despite enormous challenges and unpredictable region, as we witnessing what is happening in Venezuela today. Both Jordan and Bενma are eager advocates for women empowerment, and that should be proud for their achievement. However, the symbolism and evidence of Panamanian women empowerment is here to see. Her Excellency, Vice President Mrs. Saint Malo, as a father with 3 young ladies, it is exceptionally honored and heartening to call on Your Excellency to deliver your keynote speech. Please welcome Mrs.
Good afternoon. Professor Abdel Karim Al-Kida, President of the University of Jordan, Minister Chinchilla, Minister of Economy and Finance of Panama, Ambassador Guardia, Ambassador of Panama to Jordan, Dr. Mohammad Al-Katesh, Dean of Faculty of Political Sciences, Dr. Mohammad Kail Oidat, Vice Dean of the Faculty of Political Sciences, ambassadors from the region that are joining us today, members of the diplomatic corps, Panamanian guests, dear students, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity of sharing with you a little bit about my country and particularly the agenda between Panama and Jordan, and furthermore, my absolute delight to be in this beautiful, fantastic country, this beautiful, fantastic city, and furthermore at your university. It's truly an honor to be here with you today. Panama and Jordan have 25 years of bilateral diplomatic relations. Two countries, small, that despite our distance, we have shared values of liberty, shared values of rights, of the respect for diversity, but most of all, playing the role of promoting dialogue and promoting peace in our specific regions. In this regard, I would like to recognize, in the name of the Republic of Panama, the work of His Majesty King Abdullah II and Jordan in working for peace and stability in a region that is very complex in this regard. In the same fashion, both Panama and Jordan are countries committed to human rights and the humanitarian response. In this regard, I should also mention the large number of refugees that Jordan has received, approximately 1.3 million according to official figures, in a country of a population of 8 million people. That number represents an important weight, and I would like to congratulate Jordan for that response, for a global challenge that we need to continue to respond globally, but that there are some countries like Jordan that definitely carry a higher weight to that challenge. Last year, Panama was very happy to be able to send Panamanian teachers to Jordanian refugee camps, a very small number of them, but it was a small gesture on our part to try to support your country in the effort that you're doing in this important response. As the Middle East has this geopolitical challenge, in Latin America we have our very own. Venezuela was just mentioned. We also have a delicate situation in Nicaragua. In both these countries, people are suffering, their human rights are not being respected, and they are being forced indirectly to leave their country, just like many refugees around this region are forced to leave their country and are finding host in your country. This crisis of Venezuela and Nicaragua is not only their crisis, it's a crisis to the region. It has represented the Latin American region receiving big waves of migration, particularly from Venezuela. It's becoming harder and harder to sustain this reality, but it's a reality. In Venezuela, the Republic of Panama has recognized Juan Guaidó as the interim president of the Republic of Venezuela. And we're part of the more than 60 countries globally that recognize him as the interim president and are working to support the return to democracy in this country. We support the democratic transition to democracy in Venezuela and the equitable participation of all political actors in this new electoral process that needs to be convened. As was already mentioned, Panama has enjoyed many years already of democratic government, of peace and stability, but it was not easy to get where we are today, and we understand the suffering of the people of Venezuela. Just as Panama and Jordan are committed to peace and stability, we are also committed to the fight against terrorism. We're both members of the International Coalition Against ISIS. We look forward to the advancement of the efforts to have a more peaceful world, and we have supported His Majesty King Abdullah II's Aqaba process in this framework. In terms of foreign policy, Panama believes in the importance of multilateralism, particularly to small countries like ours. We believe in the importance of cooperation as tools for development. In this fashion, we're trying hard to get closer to regions such as the Middle East, Asia, and Africa, regions with which Panama has had very limited agendas up to this point. The opening up of our embassy here is a result of this effort. We have very few embassies in these regions, but we have prioritized Jordan because of the similarities between our countries in terms of our approach to stability, our approach to peace, our approach to handling differences among countries. Let me tell you a little bit more about Panama. We are a country that emerged from the waters 3 million years ago to connect the continent. With the emergence of the isthmus, there were changes in ocean currents, the climate of the world, and its biodiversity. Since that moment, Panama started to play the role that we believe we play today, the role of the Great Connection. Some decades after that, after connecting the oceans with an interoceanic train, the first one to be built in the region, the Panama Canal was constructed and a new era of transit and trade globally began. For the past 30 years, we have enjoyed a stable and strong democracy, which has created a climate where investments are secure and where it is easy to live with a high quality of life. Panama is a platform for international trade, a global hub of people and connectivity that we like to call the Great Connection. Our geographic position is one of our most valuable assets and the foundation of our success. Our airport is the most connected airport in the region, connects with direct flights to more than 90 destinations. Tocumen Airport is currently undergoing a 92.5 million expansion that will allow the transit to increase to almost 20 million people by 2020. Further, in 2016, we inaugurated our expanded Panama Canal, a $66 billion project, which is a maritime route that is continuing to transform global trade patterns. Through the Panama Canal, through our ports and our logistics sector, we connect to 144 maritime routes and over 1,700 ports in 160 countries. The canal is a major player in global trade. Our nation is a diversified economy based on high-quality services where no sector surpasses 20% of GDP. In the last decade, Panama has been one of the fastest-growing economies worldwide. We have been the fastest-growing economy in the region last year, and we will probably be the same this year. Between 2001 and 2013, the average annual growth of Panama was 7.2%, more than double the regional average. Forecasts indicate that this will continue to be the pattern. In the past 10 years, more than 135 multinational companies, such as Procter & Gamble, Dell, and Adidas, have established their regional headquarters in Panama. In the framework of a special economic zone, we have extended an invitation to the Jordanian government to send a delegation to visit this economic zone and other economic zones that have been part of our success and our efforts to increase investments in our country. We also host the United Nations Regional Hub to Latin America. We have just inaugurated the first humanitarian hub in Latin America and the Caribbean as part of our support to the international community and to the humanitarian response. Our foundations attract the presence of multinational companies due to our logistics platform, our geographic position, and the many special regimes that have created Panama as a facilitator to the presence of foreign companies. These special regimes, which establish economic incentives, has created a very favorable business environment in Latin America. We're proud to have a world-class banking center, leader in the region and in the world, which abides by the highest international standards, confirmed by 86 local and international banks. Regarding the global agenda, back in 2015, just like Jordan did, we committed to the Sustainable Development Goals. And since that moment, we have redoubled our efforts to achieve those goals. Taking into consideration the reality of our region, the achievement of the 2030 Agenda, it represents a big challenge. And I am sure that other regions and other countries feel the same way. But we have no option. The 2030 Agenda, I do believe it's not an option if we wish to have higher standards of living and better opportunities for everybody. Each of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals are required to ensure those better livelihoods for future generations. Most of the problems we're facing today are the same we were facing a decade ago. It will be the same that we will be facing a decade from now if we don't create public policies specifically targeted to the well-being of the people. Policies that have direct impact in communities. 2030 Agenda, it's a tool, I believe, a mechanism that goes from local to global, and that requires the participation of every sector to ensure that no one is left behind. As Goal 17 establishes, we need to create partnerships to achieve those goals, and I do hope that among those partnerships, the partnership between Jordan and Panama will play a key role. Women represent more than half, if not half, of the world's population. How do we plan to make a better world without including that half of the population? I would like to congratulate Jordan for the efforts for gender equality. Empowering and closing the gender gaps are key to achieving this Agenda 2030. Jordan, just like Panama, is not only part of the Equal Pay Coalition, but is a champion of the Equal Pay Coalition. In both regions, we need to do a lot more, and we have to do it faster if we want to achieve Agenda 2030. But I am pleased to say that we are going in the correct direction. We just need to go in that direction faster. Taking into consideration our logistics platform, which facilitates reception, handling, storage, redistribution of supplies, and equipment of the mobilization of human resources. As I have just mentioned, the inauguration of the humanitarian hub in Panama, we do continue to work to ensure that this hub also represents a key to achieving Agenda 2030, particularly to the Caribbean region, which is a region very prone to climate change and to disaster. Dealing with emergencies, natural phenomena, and catastrophes is definitely mandatory in terms of the international trade agenda. This is why Panama has adopted as a priority for our foreign policy agenda the provision of this infrastructure with the humanitarian hub. Regarding our foreign policy, I have mentioned to you our interest to work closer with these regions of the world. We have expressed to you how we see ourselves as a country that promotes dialogue, that promotes understanding, as the way to achieve a solution to problems and building bridges to differences. In that same fashion, we are using our foreign policy platform to work on other issues such as the scientific agenda. We have launched science diplomacy. I had the pleasure this morning of visiting the Royal Science Society. I am surprised and very impressed by the advances that you're making, particularly in the holistic approach. We understand that independent work is important, but putting a holistic framework to that work is central to advancement. And I have seen that Jordan has been very strong on that, and I take that back to my own country to try to emulate and to foster cooperation between Jordan and Panama in terms of our scientific efforts. Our scientific community in Panama has progressed. We're investing heavily in this area, but as any other area of development that requires cooperation, I do believe that science and technology it's even more important. We're working also in coordination with the national institutions to expand our international contacts and partners and have greater access to debates on science, as in other areas of development, and cooperate, establish partnerships, learn from best practices, share our best practices. Those shared practices and those fantastic practices of the Royal Academy that we saw this morning are something that definitely we will bring back as part of this science diplomacy. Also, we are continuing to work on cultural diplomacy with the objectives of establishing people-to-people contact. I am very happy that I have witnessed this morning the signature of a memorandum of understanding between the University of Jordan and Panamanian universities that I hope in the future will allow for the presence of Jordanian students in our universities and foster that student-to-student collaboration and people-to-people collaboration, definitely part of two countries' agendas. Finally, I don't want to take too much time because I want to have more time for your questions and comments that are very relevant to me. I would like to sum up telling you that our foreign policy, once again, is based on promoting dialogue, on promoting peace, particularly on the respect for international law, the respect for human rights, together with presenting Panama as a gateway to Latin America and to the Caribbean through our platform, our ports platform, our logistics platform, and our connectivity. Let me reiterate to you my gratitude today for having listened to me, for showing an interest on my country by being here. And I'm really looking forward to strengthening cooperation between our two countries, between our universities. Thank you to the Latin American ambassadors present here today that have joined us. And let this just be the beginning of our closer work together. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have, first of all, thank you very much for your speech, which at least Panama seems to be confident in the future-looking country, so that's at least a very positive note one can emphasize. We would leave the opportunity for anyone who would like to make a comment, a question. So Your Excellency has given us this opportunity, and I hope we can take advantage of it. Yes? Mr. Hassan.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for this informative lecture. And I learned a lot about Panama. I used to be ignorant about a lot of things about that part of the world, but thank you very much. My question is actually a concern about us being Muslims when we travel abroad. Because implicit in your speech an invitation for Jordanians to go to Panama. And we've seen how Muslims being treated in different parts of the world. The massacres, Islamophobic, I would say crazy feelings vis-a-vis the Muslims. So would you please enlighten us about how Muslims being seen in Panama, and if you can substantiate this with any public opinion or any surveys about the position of the Panamanian people toward the particular toward the Arabs. Thank you.
Would you like to take your questions or answer them? Yes. Another. Yes, please.
Hello, Your Excellency. First, welcome to Jordan. We're very happy to have you here, and it's a huge pleasure to know about your country. First of all, as a foreign language student, I was wondering about the momentum that you mentioned about exchange students with Panama and Jordan, and how serious it's going to be, whether it's for language students or political science students, whether it's actually going to be applied in the future, and the feasibility of these projects. Thank you.
We can take another question, and then we would let Her Excellency maybe respond to that. So any other to Amin?
I don't have any question, but I have a general comment.
Please.
Hola. No hablo español, but I have something. Really, we are appreciate having you here in our faculty, Your Highness Spain Alforado. We are looking for more cooperation between this university and this faculty of international studies with the universities in behalf of all my colleagues. We are grateful having you with us, and thank you for your visit.
Would you like to?
Thank you for the comments and the questions. Regarding the view of Panamanians on Muslims, let me tell you that Panama, I guess, is as a result of our history, and having been I like to say that Panama has been globalized before globalization was in fashion. We've really been a crossroads to the world, and our population is a melting pot. We have people, descendants from all regions of the world, and you find this in Panama as you visit our country. In the same fashion, we have important communities that have made Panama their home. We have a large Chinese community. About 10% of the population is Chinese, as they came to Panama to build the railroad over 100 years ago. We have an important Arab community that has been present in Panama for a long, long time. We have an important Jewish community that's also part of Panama. So you find in my country all religions, even though we are mostly Catholic, our population, you will find diverse representation. And more than that, you find that we all live in community. Truly, you should visit Panama to see this for yourself. If you go to the Colón Free Zone, you will find in the Colón Free Zone Jewish businesses, Arab Muslim businesses, all really working together, and we take pride in the fact that the different religious denominations in Panama have a great understanding and conversation. We recently hosted the World Youth Day. We had Pope Francis in Panama for the World Youth Days, and we hosted young people and not so young people from over 150 countries. And it was fantastic to see in the hosting of pilgrims, Panamanian families hosting of pilgrims, that many church denominations became a part of that. And you had Muslim population in Panama hosting Catholic youth visiting Panama for the World Youth Days, just like you had Jewish families hosting Catholic young pilgrims to the World Youth Day. So this is what Panama is. I cannot say that you will find in Panama that Panamanians judge Muslims the way we have seen in other parts, and something that we just reject. We understand that there is good and bad people everywhere, and we just need to continue to work together globally to ensure that goodness prevails, and we're all part of this. Regarding visas, we have, we're working harder. We are working harder at that, not only with our embassies, we hope to facilitate that, but we have just installed last month a platform for virtual approval of visas for those countries that do not have embassies or consulates. This is just the beginning, we're starting to work at that, but we are trying to ensure that our country welcomes visitors from all over the world, and are working hard on visas in this regard. Regarding the exchange program, up to now we need Spanish, but we're working with some English universities in Panama to sign agreements so that we can host also students that will take their classes in English. So we do hope to be able to make this a reality pretty soon, and I am sure that our ambassador will let you know as soon as this is possible. And I do hope to foster cooperation with the university in other fields. I am sure that our universities will be as interested as the University of Jordan to promote this cooperation.
So we take it as an invitation. دكتور فيصل إذا سمحت.
Thank you, Rئيس, for this fruitful and very deep-rooted introduction about presentation about Jordanian and Panamanian relations. As you know, Jordan, the main essential factor in its foreign policy is the Palestine issue. So nowadays we hear about the century deal, which is opposite what Jordanian looked at this conflict, two-state resolution. As Vice President of our friend Panamanian Republic and as Foreign Minister, how do you look to what so-called century deal, which is opposite actually the Security Council Resolution 242 and 338? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Faisal. Dr. Faisal is our former dean, so we and another former dean as well, Dr. Musalha, please.
Thank you. You are welcome, Your Excellency. We are very grateful to be here as a voice from Latin America, where the relations and links between the Arab world and Latin America still modest, and we hope that it should be more stronger in the future. I did work in the Arab world for many years, and there were many conferences on the summit level, but still I think the relations still very modest. And regarding the relation between Jordan and Panama, I am very grateful about what you have said about how to promote these relations for the benefits of the two peoples in Jordan. My question regarding Venezuela, and I was touched by what you have said about the internal politics of Venezuela. Do you think that, there is a Cold War impact on what's going on the internal politics of Venezuela? And instead of trying to settle this issue, they are trying to inflame the internal conflicts between the political powers in that country. Thank you.
Thank you. I think two major questions.
Yes. Thank you. Regarding the Israeli-Palestine conflict, Panama has historically supported the UN resolutions. We support a two-state solution. We have not and will not move our embassy to Jerusalem. We believe those are messages that are not conducive to a peaceful resolution of the conflict. We are concerned that messages recently and steps taken recently do not seem to be a step forward in that direction. However, we maintain hope that a peaceful resolution and a two-state solution will be positive. In order for that to happen, we would need to see some changes in the events taking place. Panama has been a strong partner to Israel for many, many years. We will continue to be a strong partner to Israel, but we also have taken steps recently to strengthen our relations with Palestine. We are working on, in the future, establishing an office in Palestine. We are welcoming Palestine to open an office in Panama, and we believe this to be a first step in the eventual establishment of diplomatic relations, which we have not yet, but we believe that's the way forward. So our position on the conflict is very clear, and we do hope that multilateralism and peaceful resolution can prevail there. Regarding Venezuela, is it an internal conflict or Cold War? Both. And I don't think that's conducive to a resolution. President Varela has expressed publicly that we should work at the solution of the situation in Venezuela because people are suffering, because internally it's really catastrophic. People have a humanitarian crisis in Venezuela. They have no access to food, they have no access to medicine, recently even electricity, water, basic needs. I heard a United Nations high-level authority just a couple of weeks ago mention that in Venezuela, according to the UN's records, 95% of the population was currently living under the poverty line. That's just too much, and that's an internal time bomb. However, regarding the question of geopolitics and Cold War, as I was mentioning, President Varela has expressed a couple of times that we should not let it happen that the conflict in Venezuela becomes a geopolitical struggle. That will not be conducive to an internal resolution. We do believe that the solution is the convening of an electoral process, a credible electoral process that ensures the participation of all political actors, and that the people of Venezuela can on their own resolve the situation by having free and fair elections and choosing their next leaders. and working out their crisis, and we are supportive of their efforts.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Loha Sheikh, a political sciences student. First of all, on behalf of my fellow students, I'd like to say that we're all humbled to be in the presence of Your Excellency and the presence of our truly excellent professors. Thank you for this opportunity. You mentioned in your speech that Panama is following an agenda that promotes human rights and refugees' rights. So I just wanted to inquire about Panama's role in the refugee crisis that we're all suffering from right now at this time and age. I wanted to inquire about Panama's role in the refugee crisis that we're all suffering from in this age.
Okay.
Yes, who else? Yeah, تفضلي. انت شرفي.
I just wanted to ask you a question, like a personal question. So I'm also from Latin America, and I would like to know your role as a woman. I'm a political science student, and I just wanted to know how the challenges you're facing in pursuing a career that's mostly dominated by men or women.
Yes. Regarding the refugee crisis, Panama has signed both United Nations compacts that were signed last year, the Migrant Compact and the Refugee Compact. Both support a global solution to a global crisis. We understand that not all countries of the world are signatory to these compacts, and that not necessarily today there is a global response. Definitely some countries are carrying a larger weight. Let me first of all refer to the situation in Latin America that I believe is different from the situation in this part of the world. We do not have such a large number of refugees like this region of the world has. We do have a large number of migrants, which is a different situation. Panama's role regarding our situation with migrants, we are a country that has historically received migrants from the region. If we look at the numbers, we mostly have migrants from Colombia, Nicaragua, and recently Venezuela. But we have migrants from other parts of the region. However, there is a particular phenomenon right now that is really affecting the region, and is the transit of migrants from the Latin American continent and from other continents that are reaching Latin America mostly to go to the United States. There are large numbers of migrants from Africa, some from the Middle East, but mostly from Africa, that because of the visa or lack of visa requirements in some countries of the South, arrive to the Americas and basically start walking up their way to the United States. So we have large number of transit migrants that walk through the jungle, that come to Panama from our border with Colombia. These are people that do not wish to stay in Panama. These are people that are working hard to get to the United States. Our approach to that is a humanitarian approach. We do not send them back to the jungle like some countries suggest. When they arrive Panama, we basically take care of them, provide them health, provide them nutrition, security, and basically let them continue their way with the support of the government, so that we do not have human trafficking within our countries assisted by criminal organizations. We are working with Costa Rica, our direct neighbor, to do this in a controlled flow of migrants, and then they would go to the rest of the countries. And this is a critical situation to the region right now. We don't have that many refugees, but we do believe we all need to work harder at the financing of these crisis. We understand that a small country like Jordan hosting the number of refugees that you're hosting is a very important burden on the budget, and we believe that we should work harder globally to support those countries that carry a larger weight. Regarding your question, I think we should just not be afraid and do what you're doing. You know, be in school, study, prepare yourself, and move on. And you will find along your way a lot of people that will support you. And I do believe that younger generations have a lot more opportunities today than there were before. I cannot say for myself that I found it particularly hard. I did most of my career with the United Nations, an organization that promotes gender balance, so I didn't find it to be an obstacle, but I do recognize that not all women in my country have had the same opportunities that I've had. I think that we need to continue to work very hard at that, and the role of each of us is just to support each other and in that advancement.
Okay, I think I understand from the ambassador we have to choose. Okay, you are the boss. Please.
You mentioned that there was like a future for relations between Jordan and Bενма, but you didn't like clarify the nature of the relations. So I'm just wondering, is it going to include like economic relationships between Jordan and Bενma? That's it.
I think broad, and that's a role of my ambassador here, so he has a lot of work. But I think broad in terms of cooperation. What we found this morning with the Royal Science Society is that there is a lot of opportunity for cooperation in this framework. We're also trying to promote investments and commercial exchanges. So we hope to host soon a Jordanian delegation to Panama so that you can learn with your own eyes of the possibilities on our special economic areas and foster commercial exchanges, foster cooperation. People-to-people exchanges like with the student mobility program, as well as government-to-government cooperation. I think we're ready to have a broad bilateral agenda.
Thank you very much, Manu. I hope you join me to thank Mrs. St. Malo for her speech and her response to the question, and I hope you will come back to Jordan again. This is also an invitation. Thank you very much.